Welcome back. Season 2, episode 2, newly named Trust the Podcast. I'm Micah. Jake is my co-host here. This week we are reviewing the middle of the pack teams in our league. We are a third year Dynasty league. So things are starting to shake out a little bit. Teams kind of have found their direction where they stand. But we're going to go review the 4 middle of the pack teams in our league. Who do we got up first, Jake?
Yeah, coming up first. So looking at the middle 4 teams, if you missed the top 4, you can catch that episode on the same YouTube channel that one's on. But going into these middle 4 teams, we're going to cover Mount Shine, Najee, and the Jets, Broken Step team, that's Joe, LOLGG, good old Stewart, and 4-string running back team, and that is Josh. So covering some good teams today. So we'll get right into it with Najee and the Jets here. What do you see on this team? What are you looking at?
Yeah, this is a team I don't expect to be middle of the pack next year. I think this is one of the 3 best teams in the league, being yours, mine, and this team. They're young. He's loaded. He has the 2 best running backs in the league, a top 5 or 2 best wide receivers in the league, excuse me. And behind that, you have DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton. Elijah Moore is expected to take a jump. You have a little bit of depth on your bench, not a ton. So if there is a knock on this team, I think that it's thin. But he's so young. If any of these guys, if Romeo Doubs shows up and becomes what he is in preseason, if Rondale Moore has a leap, like he has plenty in the chamber here. I expected this team to be contending this year.
Yeah, I think you covered most of it. He's got stud QB. He's got a couple good backups sitting on the top wide receivers you could possibly have with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. As long as those talent pieces, those young guys hit in the next year or 2, he will be dangerous. Super dangerous. And he's also been really active. I want to give a shout out to that. Super active in the league, really does give us bonus points. He'll at least look at trades, entertain them. So shout out to you for that. But looking at his draft capital too, he did give up quite a bit to get where he is at. So he gambled on it. He really only has 1 4th-round pick next year. But then he's still got the rest of going forward. What do you think about his gamble with giving up that capital?
Yeah, he's super young. So as long as these players who have showed promise and have had good seasons continue to perform, and if some of his bench pieces continue to grow, he'll be just fine. But if we're talking about starting a true dynasty, the opposite side of that coin is if some of these guys pan out, if someone gets a serious injury, he doesn't have the depth and he doesn't really have the draft picks to really handle things well. But assuming everyone stays healthy, he should be right up there. And you got to give up the draft picks to get there. So he's played his cards right.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. Good for you, Ryan. Keep it up. Nice team. Excited to have you compete. Going into our next team, we got Broken Step. My stepdad Joe. What do you see on this roster here? What is it looking like?
Yeah, this roster is sneaky good. I know Joe isn't really a contender, but I don't think he's middle of the pack either. I think if he was just a hair more active than he is, he could crush with this team. He has so many good young pieces here and just really solid pieces. His bench, he's drafted really well. Super sneaky team here. Could definitely push for a championship if they get hot. If he made a couple moves, he could bolster it. This is definitely like a 4th place team or 5th place team at worst, I think.
Yeah, I agree. He's got, like you said, he's got so much talent. It's actually crazy when you look at this roster.
Yeah.
He's one of those teams last year that put up random weeks. He just went off and put up top score, like literally high score of the league. Yeah, if those young pieces hit, he might need to take a few of those tier 3, tier 4 people and package them to get a little bit better talent and hold on to that depth he's got. But he's making the right moves, and yeah, just a little bit more activity. He really is could make this team shine. Looking at his draft capital, hasn't made any moves with it, so he's still loaded going into all these drafts. Maybe look at that to improve his roster too. If he's really not one to, be super involved, he could sell some of that off, get a good player, package it with one of them. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, this season kicking off gives him that ignition to really take it to the next level.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
He's in a great spot though. If he's halfway through the year and he's contending, he could sell some picks, some rookies, and really go out and get a superstar. If it's not going well or he doesn't think he can contend, he could just sit on it. He has a lot of options here with this team.
yeah, he's got a few veterans he could look to sell to get more capital too if he doesn't want to, push
Yep.
this year. So,
Yeah, tons of options.
um, next team is good old LOLGG, one Stu, the infamous Stu. What's his roster looking like to you?
Um, it is like all boom or bust in my opinion. His floor is probably really bad, and his ceiling is probably pretty decent. But that's about it. I think every week you might get 20 out of some of these guys, and you might get two, and you aren't really sure which. So I think he is probably a sell candidate if the season starts off rough for him. Getting rid of Dalvin Cook, McLaurin, Mike Williams, like some of these guys, and just get young quickly, he could be all right. But I don't know if he would pull the trigger that quick. I don't know how eager he is to rebuild. So we'll see how he plays it.
Better start hot or else he ain't coming back with this team. Yeah, I agree. Everything you said pretty much lines up. He's got some good pieces. He's got Patty Mahomes. He's got Dalvin Cook. He's putting a lot of eggs in the Brees Hall basket. Um, he's got decent pieces. Just got to see him hit a lot of ceiling plays for sure.
Yeah.
Looking at his draft capital, he doesn't have a first rounder going into next year, but he does have the rest of his picks. I guess that just doesn't really speak too much. He could, if he decides to blow it up, like he may find out 3-4 weeks in, he could easily recoup that first round pick, sell off some of his pieces. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. If he hits the ceiling, he'll be really riding a high all year, but we'll see if he ends up having a blow up.
Yep.
Last team we're going to talk about today is the 4-string running back team, aka Josh's team. He is a new owner, correct? This is his first fantasy football going into this 12-man dynasty we joined.
So last season was his first time ever playing fantasy football. So this will be his second season. Super good owner though. Does a ton of research. I think he learned a ton last year. I think he's having a good time. Another very active owner. It's been awesome having him in the league. As far as his team goes, this looks like a middle of the pack team through and through. You got a couple guys that might pop off. You're not really good enough to really contend even, but you're not bad enough to tank. So I think he's still probably a couple moves away, maybe some draft picks. So maybe something down the road he can kind of turn the tide here. But this looks like a middle of the pack team over and over and over and 10 times out of 10 times.
Yeah, I mean, and again, for anyone who listens and wants more depth, like just let us know. We'll definitely hit some things because he's got a good story to talk about with when he took this team over and really just starting to gain knowledge. And, he knew he had to hit the button of blowing it up, and he did last year. And, you can see it there. He's got some veterans he didn't dump off, but he's got a lot of young guys sitting on his draft capital. He's picked up a lot in terms for it. So he's got 2 firsts, 2 seconds. He picked up an extra second going into 2024. He's sitting on a lot of draft capital. I mean, he's ready to continue building it and make this the mid to late 2020s is going to be his time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he probably needs to do a little bit more selling this year. Draft well, and then that's how you turn that ship around, right? But Definitely. He has been an aggressive owner. He did push the blow it up and rebuild button. So props to him for that. He will turn this team around faster than someone like Making Moves or Stu or someone like that, just because they are hesitating to blow it up and rebuild, where he's going to just go for it and it'll pay off for him. It just might not be this year.
Yeah, he hit the button, and you can see, like, looking at he's got some people. KJ Osborne could really have a good year. Terrace Marshall's really been hit or miss. Like he could blow up and be that guy. He's got some pieces, man. He's got pieces. Christian Watson, Chris Olave. Let's hope for the best for him. Really want to see him up in that contenders block with us. But yeah, those are all the teams we really wanted to cover this episode. Looking for the start of season coming up soon.
Yep. Like Jake said, those are your middle of the pack teams. Next, we will be reviewing the bottom 4 teams in our league. So stay tuned for that. And we will catch you guys next time.